Welcome to Beyond the Wheeze, the podcast where perseverance meets potential. I'm Josh Rheaume, public speaker, marathon runner, asthma advocate, and your host as we explore the intersection of health, fitness, and resilience. Whether you're managing asthma, chasing a new personal best, or simply looking for inspiration, Beyond the Wheeze is here to show you that no challenge is too great to overcome. Together, we'll uncover stories, insights, and strategies to help you push beyond your limits. It's time to breathe deeply, move forward, and unlock your true potential, one step at a time.
Today, I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with an incredible advocate, creator, and all-around powerhouse in the asthma community. My guest today has taken social media by storm, using Instagram and TikTok to spread awareness and education about asthma in a way that's engaging, relatable, and most importantly, fun. Mia Fritsch-Anderson is not just a content creator. She's an advocate, a dancer, an athlete, a mechanical engineer student, and even a former title holder as Miss Illinois Teen 2022. She's been an inspiration for so many young people navigating life with asthma, proving that the condition doesn't have to limit you. It can empower you to educate, advocate, and thrive. Through her work, Mia has made it her mission to ensure that kids and teens with asthma feel seen, understood, and equipped with the knowledge to manage their condition. From breaking down myths to demonstrating proper inhaler techniques, her platform is a beacon of both empowerment and education. So today, we're going to dive into her journey, how she started, why she does what she does, and what's next for this multi-talented advocate. Mia, welcome to Beyond the Wheeze.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you. And as I mentioned before we hit the record button, I've been following you for a little while. I've always found you real super engaging and inspiring. And I'm not going to lie, I've definitely tried to repeat some of the content that you've done, but it's just next level. It's something I can't do.
Thank you so much. And honestly, it's inspiring to see anyone talking about asthma on the internet, on social media, because there's not many of us out there.
Right. It's an important space to fill. And that's why it's so big to have people like you on here, because you and I were both very similar. I was reading your story. You were diagnosed with severe asthma at about, a year old?
Yeah.
My story is something similar. And I believe your mom has asthma as well.
Yes.
My mom as well, which is huge because they were able to, advocate for us when we couldn't advocate for ourselves. So important to keep that ball going. Unfortunately, it does continue. My mom has asthma, I have asthma, and I've got two girls. I got twin girls, Lily and Lennon, and they both have breathing issues already. But at least we can be that mouthpiece to help bridge that gap between the patient and the healthcare system.
Yes, that's huge.
So Mia, I know you're busy, so let's get started. We'll first dive into your journey and social media impact as well. First question, Mia. Let's start from the beginning. What first inspired you to start creating content about asthma and lung health?
Well, in 2020, I was sitting in my house doing nothing because of the pandemic, and I had a really big realization that I noticed a lot of the negative stigma of asthma in the media. It's in one of my favorite shows, Bob's Burgers. They use it as kind of a comedy bit, and that's not what asthma actually is. So I started looking for people who are talking about this type of thing, and I couldn't find anything, and I decided to start doing it by myself. I started producing content on my social media at around 200 followers, and I actually took a social media course through MIT online to learn about the algorithm and how I could reach more people, like using fun trending audios, colorful backgrounds, keeping videos short so that I could reach my audience, because all teens are on social media, and especially during the pandemic, they were. So during the pandemic, I started creating that content and building my platform, and it's really just turned into something that I could never have imagined when I started.
Right. So you can look at social media as a bad thing, but you can also look at it as a good thing. And that's the thing, right? A lot of teens today, a lot of kids these days, they'll absorb anything from social media. And I had this chat recently at a conference I was speaking at in Toronto, more somebody kind of poking, I won't say fun, but kind of saying, well, the younger generation, you'll never know what it's like. You're always looking at your phones. You're not going to learn anything from that. Well, Unfortunately, you're going to, and it's a generational gap, a bit of a generational divide. But you can spread so much through that, and I'm glad that you found that outlet to do so. I'll have to learn by example. Taking a social media course with MIT, that's huge.
It was really helpful. I honestly knew nothing about algorithms before, and it not only talked about Instagram, but TikTok too. So, and they both have different algorithms, which makes it extremely hard to produce content on both. But it is very important to me because you can reach different people on both platforms.
I've got, or rather my dog has 180,000 followers on TikTok. And I have no idea how the algorithm works. I did a post one day and I woke up to millions of views on it. And then it seemed like whatever video I would release, as long as it had her in it, and my twin girls, of course, because it's how my videos are structured, it would do really well. So although I don't understand the algorithm, yeah, for sure, it's there. And if you know how to tap into it, absolutely, that's huge. And I will point out to our listeners as well. So you, and I believe you're the first American that we've had on the show. You're from Chicago, or Chicago native, I believe?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. I've always wanted to go to Chicago. When I think of Chicago, I think of the canals. And I think of that big silver glowy monument that you guys have in the city, and I don't know what that is, and people are probably hate on me for that, but that's what I think of.
It's the bean. It's still there. Weather right now is a little questionable. It keeps going between like warm and sunny and then snowing the next day, but summer is a good time to come visit.
Good to know. I will definitely come visit in the summer, and I've always kind of wanted to run the Chicago Marathon. At some point in my life, maybe it could be a possibility.
My mom has run the Chicago Marathon.
And your mom has asthma as well.
Yes. My mom's asthma isn't as bad, but definitely she understands it and has understood it since I was really little. When I was a kid and my asthma was really, really bad, my mom would sit at the end of my bed to make sure that I was still breathing at night. And she actually got me connected to resources like the Respiratory Health Association, where I volunteer and partner with them a lot. So she's been huge as a part of this journey too.
That's amazing. I see it's a family thing.
Yeah.
So you built an incredible platform that educates and entertains at the same time. What was your vision when you started, and did you expect it to grow the way that it has?
I definitely did not expect it to grow as much as it has, especially recently with partnerships like AstraZeneca, which is a pharmaceutical brand. I never could have imagined that. But my vision when I started was that I just wanted to help other teens and kids feel comfortable taking out their inhaler in front of other people. I really struggled to use my inhaler in front of others in gym class and at dance when I was little. And I read a statistic that less than 25% of teens will take their medication in front of their peers, even if they're having a life-threatening asthma attack. And I knew that was a huge statistic, and that's something that I wanted to change because I had been there before and I knew how bad that felt.
You literally have the same story as me. And I spoke about it, I think, on my last episode about that stigma, right? Having the need to pull out your inhaler to take it because you're in gym class, you feel like you're going to pass out, but you don't want other people to see you. And you even go as far sometimes as taking the inhaler and yourself into the locker room where nobody can see you because you're terrified. And then what could happen? Nobody's there. What if you do pass out? What if your exacerbation gets even worse? That was always a thing. And to the point once with myself that I refused to take my inhaler because I didn't want to be that kid, and I ended up collapsing, and I took an ambulance to the hospital, and then I took an ambulance from that hospital to another hospital because it was that severe. So it's not just important to educate the kids or the teens that have to take their inhaler because they're asthmatics, but also to educate the teens and the people around them, including the teachers, the parents, the community members, what have you, because that's really important as well. Because to a lot of people, they think of asthma, as you said right there, at Bob's Burgers. Do you know what I mean? They think of just a skit, or they think of Disney's Recess. I don't know if you ever watched that, where you had the little guy. I don't know. I think his name might have been Gus. Again, I'm probably way off, but he would take out his inhaler and take his inhaler, and it was kind of a joke. And I've never found it really that funny.
I definitely never found it that funny either. And there is a huge point in educating people who don't have asthma too, because they could be a part of that situation, especially teachers and people in schools. I know that's something that was really big when I was growing up, was allowing kids to be able to self-carry their inhaler and stocking schools with albuterol, which is something that just recently came into effect here in Illinois. And it really can make a big difference.
I feel like we could use a lot of that here north of the border.
Yeah, it's been a long fight for sure. And it's a lot of advocating that's happened over the span of my life to be able to make all of that happen, honestly.
So social media can be a powerful tool, but it also comes with its challenges. Have you faced any misconceptions or pushbacks while advocating for asthma awareness online?
I definitely have. I get negative comments all the time. And actually, my mom helps monitor my social media sometimes still, because those can be really harmful for me to read. But honestly, a lot of the time I use those negative comments as a reason to keep going, because it's people like that and opinions like that that are why I'm doing this, is to combat that. And there's been some really odd ones, and honestly, just people who haven't even looked at my page. It's really obvious when they comment. I had someone recently tell me, oh, if you didn't eat meat, you wouldn't have asthma. I'm a vegetarian, and that's pretty clear on my social media. So just keeping in mind that these people, one, aren't educated, and two, that's the reason I need to keep going, is so nobody else has to interact with people like that.
Such a positive way to look at it. And I've never heard of, you eat meat, that's why you're asthmatic. That's different. I feel like we have a lot of those people that are willing to say something like that without even having ground to say on, right? Just because they can have an opinion. And that's the scary thing about online. I think that's great that your mom helps with your social media. Again, as I mentioned with my dog on TikTok, when we went viral, we had a trove of bad comments, like unrelatable to asthma, of course. But I had my kids in my videos, right? So of course there was scrutiny there, like, oh, do you think they'd want to be on the camera? I get it. And then with my dog, does your dog really want to do those tricks? Yes, my dog loves it. That's, the kind of breed she is. She loves it. But there are always those people. Or if I had a video without, mom in the video, where's mom? Are you a single dad? Things like that just really, really kind of threw us off. What's one of the most rewarding messages or interactions you've had with someone who found your content helpful?
I have people reach out to me a lot of the time and tell me how much my content has helped them. But I think the one that was the most meaningful is I had a nurse reach out to me and tell me that she has her patients who have asthma watch my videos. And she said that it's made a difference in how comfortable they feel using their inhaler in public. And that's exactly what this is meant to do. And it really encouraged me, because it was closer to the beginning of when I started doing all of this. And it really showed me that this is impacting people.
Yeah, that's really cool. I found a bit of a transformation in myself. So when I started advocating, like really advocating for the asthma community, I went from having my inhaler tucked away in my pocket where nobody could see it, to wearing it on my hip with a clip on where people could see it, or having it attached to my hand with a band that I have sent to me. I want to show it off. I'm proud of what I have. And the way that I see it, if I can show off my inhaler, then maybe we're inspiring a little Josh or a little Mia out there to also pull out theirs. And at the end of the day, maybe we're helping to save a life.
That is what is the most important about this. And you're right. I also have my inhaler clipped onto my bags. It's something that I always make sure I don't forget. But I know it can make a difference. And that's why I feel more comfortable doing it now too, I feel like.
Your content is always backed by science and credible sources. How do you ensure you're providing accurate and trustworthy information?
So a lot of the time, I like to not only take from studies, but organizations like the Respiratory Health Association that I mentioned before. I've had a very close relationship with the Respiratory Health Association since I was 3, and I started volunteering there because of my mom. So they are a great resource for me, but using resources that I know have the right facts from doctors, from studies, and just making sure that I'm putting out correct information on the internet, because exactly what I'm trying to combat is misinformation. So I don't want to be putting that out there myself.
So let's move on to a little bit about living with asthma. You were diagnosed as a toddler, so asthma has really been a part of your life your entire life. Do you remember a moment when you first understood that asthma was something that made your experience different from other kids?
I think one of the moments when I realized is at dance competitions specifically. A lot of the time in the winter, especially when I was little, I would get sick much more often than other kids. And I would have to take my nebulizer to dance competitions with me. One time, there was nowhere else to plug it in except in front of everyone. And I really didn't want to do that, but I had to so that I'd be able to dance. And I heard a lot of people making comments about me taking my inhaler. And it made me really self-conscious and made me realize, oh, this isn't something all other people experience. And I didn't necessarily understand why people didn't understand that I needed to do this, but it made me feel really bad.
I wish sometimes that kids or people in general knew that damage that they were causing just through little things like that. It's a question that I asked you, and a question that I had an answer to as well for myself. And I remember this time so vividly. I was on a school bus. I was grade 7, and I was sitting near the back with the popular kids, and I was never popular. You know, I grew up in poverty. I was bullied. I was that kid that wore clothes that probably weren't washed because, well, we couldn't afford it. It was what it was. And I remember taking out my inhaler and taking my puffer, and someone just next to me there, she had said, "I hope you die from your asthma." For no reason at all, she said that to me. And not only was I grade 7, she was an older kid. She was grade 9. And I remember her name, Katie, and I'm sure Katie's not going to listen to this podcast, but her name will always stick with me. That comment will always stick with me. And it's the first time anyone had ever said anything to me that directly made me cry, directly made me emotional. And I still think about that today. And I'm sure, like you, I use that as fuel to be like, you know what, I'm going to own this and I'm just going to take it. I don't care about you. I don't care about what you're doing. I know what I'm doing.
That's really sad to hear that kids are saying stuff like that. And I know I've personally experienced a lot of comments like that, or a lot of, oh, I didn't think asthma was that bad. And it's really the fact that people don't understand asthma is why they just kind of use it as a way to make fun of people. And it's especially kids. And it's such a big problem.
What were some of the biggest challenges you faced growing up with asthma, and how did you learn to navigate that?
So, like I said, a lot of the time I was very self-conscious, not only with my inhaler, but especially my nebulizer, which is something that I have often in the winter. And honestly, even like going into dance at the start of when I was a teenager, I would take my nebulizer before dance so that other people wouldn't see me taking it, because I really didn't like people making comments on it. But I also was really uncomfortable with people asking questions about it and my asthma. And as I got older, I realized this is something that I need to do to be able to breathe. It's more important that I'm able to do the things that I enjoy than let it hold me back because I don't want to be judged by people. And I've found that honestly now I'm more comfortable with people asking questions about asthma because I know the people who are willing to ask questions, it's not coming from a place of harm. It's because they want to actually understand. And I'd rather be able to answer those questions and help them learn a little bit more about asthma than leave those misconceptions there and possibly continue that stigma in the future for other people.
That was well said. And somebody said on one of the previous episodes that asthma really is just another obstacle for us that other people don't have, that we have to overcome. That's all it is. And if other people can understand that, I mean, you don't hate on people for overcoming their own issues, their own problems, and their own challenges. Why should they hate on us or make fun of us for overcoming ours? It was very well said. And my next question, so asthma is definitely misunderstood, often misunderstood, especially in media and pop culture. What's one myth about asthma that you wish you could erase forever?
I would say that you can't do anything if you have asthma. A lot of the time I either hear that end of the spectrum or I hear, oh, asthma's not that bad. But I think for me, the more harmful one is that you can't do anything if you have asthma. I've grown up participating in multiple sports my entire life. I train probably 30 hours every week for dance. And I can still do all of that with severe asthma. So that's definitely the thing I would want to erase, because hearing that from other people makes, especially as a kid, it made me question if I was able to do these things as well as other people. Because someone else was saying it, it made me question myself. And so that's the one I think I want to completely erase.
And it's not just the dancing for you, right? Boxing, running, and more, as we listed in the intro. Have you ever had a moment where your asthma really tested you during a performance or competition? And if so, how did you push through?
I definitely have, especially at dance competitions, because I get really nervous a lot of the time. So especially if I'm like mid full dance and I feel myself not being able to breathe as well, it can make me really nervous and just exacerbate the whole thing. So it has happened at dance competitions, and I've come off the stage and taken my inhaler after. And so it's not only been about learning to control my, like, know when I need to stop, but also figuring, oh, this doesn't need to make me spiral and get me more nervous and exacerbate my asthma even more. So it isn't just about the breathing too, which is, I think, something a lot of people don't understand. It can also be about that making you nervous in itself.
And also, to the other way around, anxiety can exacerbate your lungs,
Yes.
Especially stuffy situations. When you're in a room full of other people, you feel stuffy. That's going to lead to your asthma getting a little bit worse as well, your chest feeling tighter. A lot of people don't realize that, but it's true.
It definitely is. And yeah, you're totally correct. A lot of people don't realize that.
A lot of young people with asthma struggle with feeling different or limited. What advice would you give to a kid who feels like asthma is holding them back?
Some of the best advice that I could give them is, first of all, work with your doctor. I've had a very close relationship with my asthma and allergist since I was little, so that I can do the things that I love. But also, don't let asthma feel like something that has to hold you back. Yes, people may say things about it. People may make fun of you for it. But honestly, one of the things that I regret the most is letting those things get to me. And understanding that it's not a reflection of you as a person, it's more of a reflection of the person who's saying those things and where those things are coming from, so that you don't have to feel that way, and you can definitely do things with asthma as long as you're, one, aware, and two, careful of what you're doing, and make sure that you are healthy in order to do it.
Don't limit yourself based on what other people say you're capable of doing.
Yes, and make sure you take your inhaler, always.
Let's move on to advocacy and community impact. You've not only built a social media presence, but also made real world impacts, like your work with the FAN program and donating inhaler covers. Can you tell us more about that initiative?
Yes, so I started making inhaler covers also during the pandemic, as just a way to make an inhaler feel less like a medical device. So it's easy. It slips onto your inhaler, and you can also clip it onto a bag so that it's something that you don't forget, which was always something for me when I was little. It made it a lot easier to take it with me. I always have one on my inhaler, so I figured other kids and teens might want that, or even adults, to keep their inhaler with them. And I found that it has really made a positive impact. I know the FAN program with the Respiratory Health Association stands for FIGHT, something that I actually sat through as a kid at my school. So now they're online and they're able to reach at least 10,000 more students throughout the country, which is amazing. But they also have been distributing my inhaler covers. So I know that kids throughout Illinois are getting my inhaler covers and throughout the country, and it's really making a real impact instead of just, doing the education work. I'm also out in the community.
That's terrific. And I hope that it only expands. I would like to see that here in Canada as well.
I would love to send some to Canada.
Well, you can always send some to me and I will trial them out. I don't care if they're Hello Kitty or whatnot. I'll wear them proud. I
have a lot of different colors and patterns, so I will send some to you if you want them.
Perfect. I'm not going to say no to that. Advocacy work can be tough, especially when you're challenging misconceptions. What motivates you to keep going?
I think the thing that motivates me to keep going is just remembering how I felt when I was little, and those times that I decided maybe to not take out my inhaler, and how I felt about myself having asthma and knowing that I never want anyone else to feel like that again. And like I said before, those negative comments on social media show me that my work isn't done and there's still people out there with those speeds of asthma. And it's a big part of the reason I keep going.
You've worked with organizations like the Respiratory Health Association and Mobile Care Chicago. What's been one of the most meaningful collaborations?
I think one of the most meaningful for me was getting to work with AstraZeneca. Like I said before, I never imagined I would get to partner with a pharmaceutical brand and the brand that actually makes the inhaler that I take every single day. And seeing that these pharmaceutical companies are also invested in this and they also want to work on the stigma of asthma was really, really big for me. And it showed me that this isn't just work that we're doing in the advocacy community, but on the other side of that too.
That's awesome, because when I think of any pharmaceutical company, I don't really think of that part of it. I think of, they're pushing pills to make a profit. So I'm stoked to hear that might not always be the case.
I was very surprised and excited when they reached out to me the first time because I'd never been in contact with a pharmaceutical company, but I knew this could be really huge because they also have a really big social media platform and I could reach even more people with my message and the fact that they wanted to do that in the first place.
Yeah, life-changing potentially, right? Not just for you, but for patients as well. That's terrific. What do you think needs to change in the conversation around asthma awareness and education?
I think in the conversation, we need to start talking about the stigma of asthma. I know growing up, especially a lot of organizations that I worked with, asthma awareness is talked about a lot, but I never really heard the stigma being talked about. And that's why I started my organization, is because somebody needed to start doing it. I think we need to shift the conversation to that more because, I'm only one person, you're only one person. But the more people that we get to start talking about this, the bigger of an impact it will have.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think we need more people in the field to kind of stand up and take charge, right? Or to kind of own their illness. Maybe not just asthma, but illnesses in general. There's nothing wrong with them. Own them and help the next person. So let's move on now, Mia, to Beyond Advocacy. When you're not making content or advocating, what does a day in the life of Mia look like?
So I'm currently studying mechanical engineering at Illinois Institute of Technology. Most of the week, I'm in engineering classes or physics or math classes. I spend the beginning of my day doing that, working on homework, studying for exams. And then most nights, I am in the dance studio for around 2 to 3 hours. I love Irish dancing. It's not only a way for me to practice what I love, but also get away from some of my schoolwork sometimes and have an outlet for myself. So that's typically what a day probably looks like for me.
You're incredibly busy. I mean, you're a full-time student, you're doing this advocacy work, and you're still getting to dance. You're still getting to do all these things, which is wonderful. And I can vouch for that. I've been following Instagram for a while, and especially lately, it's been a lot of Irish dancing.
I qualified for the World Championships for the first time, so we have a lot of training leading up to that, which is going to be in the middle of April, so I'm very excited.
That's amazing. Where is that held?
In Dublin, Ireland.
That's even better. A reason to travel. And you're right in the heart of it as well.
Yeah.
And the busy schedule, I guess I should point out, the busy schedule is exactly why we had to wait till spring break to record this podcast, because we have been talking for a little bit of time now.
Yes, it's been very hectic, especially the last few weeks. All of my professors were like, let's have an exam for this class. So I think I've had probably a month and a half where I've had an exam every week.
So what drew you to mechanical engineering?
So I want to design roller coasters, which is a very niche field. But when I was about 8 years old, I was at Cedar Point, which is my favorite amusement park. It's the roller coaster capital of the world. And I looked up at one of the tallest, fastest roller coasters in the United States. It's called Millennium Force. And I asked my parents, how can I design this one day? And my dad, who has a degree in engineering, told me mechanical engineering, and I've been set on that ever since. I've always really loved roller coasters and found it really interesting, the way the track's designed, the cars, the safety systems. And so it's something that I'm really passionate about working on in the future.
Yeah, that's something you don't hear every day. I know there are people out there that design roller coasters, but you never really think about it.
It is a very niche field.
Could niche it up a bit more. So roller coaster engineer with severe asthma who advocates.
Yeah.
Go one step further. So from pageants to boxing to dancing to engineering, how do you balance everything?
Balance is something that I definitely have learned over time. And I think part of the reason I'm able to balance everything is because a lot of things that I do are so different. So it allows me to not only focus on them solely by themselves, but also sometimes have the opportunity to combine them. I also am very big on scheduling because I kind of have to be with everything that I want to do. So that definitely helps me out, kind of down to the minute every single day, just having a plan.
So compartmentalizing and creating a plan based on that. That's good advice. I'm having a hard time myself right now. I find I pull out my phone and I do socials throughout the day when really I should sit down and schedule them, or really find a different way to do it. So maybe I got to take some of your advice myself.
It's very easy to do scroll.
You mentioned you love all things Marvel. If you could be any Marvel superhero, what would you choose and why?
I feel like I have to pick my favorite. My favorite superhero has always been Spider-Man. Pretty much every single version. I just think his powers are really cool. And also, he loves science. I love science. I'm going into engineering. And I kind of relate to Peter Parker. Who's like this awkward teenager. And that's where I was in my life when those movies came out, actually. The newest ones. So I would definitely pick Spider-Man.
I'm something of a scientist myself. Sorry, I don't know if you got the reference there.
I did.
I hope somebody did. Okay, good. Marvel's great. I would probably say, somewhere along the lines of Spider-Man will also be mine. So what's one fact about you that most people wouldn't expect?
I have to say, I also sew. And one of my favorite things to do is quilting, which a lot of people don't know about me. I actually, over the summer last year, quilted my curtains for my dorm room this year. But it helps you relax a lot of the time. And it's just, sometimes if I'm stressed about school or stressed about dance or anything else that I do, I just sit down and quilt. So I have a lot of quilts lying around my house.
It's a lot better of a pastime than sitting there and doom scrolling TikTok.
It is.
So looking ahead, where do you see your advocacy work going in the next few years? And do you have any big plans or projects on the horizon?
In the next couple of years, I'm definitely going to continue my advocacy work, obviously. I know one of the big things here in Illinois every year is continuing to get funding to stock albuterol in public schools throughout the state. So that's something that I'm currently advocating for. I'm hoping to be able to go back down to Springfield in the next few years to be able to talk to our representatives and senators here in Illinois, and continue my advocacy work in person, because a lot of it has been e-advocacy since COVID. But I do really like the in-person aspect and getting to connect with those people. And then also, obviously, continuing my work with Choose to Breathe. I know my work's not done until the stigma is gone, and I don't think it's going to be gone anytime soon. I know for me, one of the biggest things that I can hope to see is a change in the media, and hopefully less with stigma surrounding asthma, especially in shows, which is one of the, I feel, biggest culprits of it. So just continuing the work that I'm doing for now and keeping that going.
If you could collaborate with any creator or organization to expand asthma awareness, who would it be?
Okay, my dream collaboration is Harry Styles, because he actually has asthma, and I've always been a huge One Direction fan and Harry Styles fan. And especially a lot of teen girls are really big fans of him, so I feel like it could have a really big impact. So hopefully one day being able to get to do that.
I didn't know he was asthmatic.
Yes.
Maybe I could reach up to him for a future episode. Hey, you never know.
That is true.
What's one piece of advice you give to someone who wants to start advocating for a cause they care about?
I think the most important thing is just diving right into it. Don't let anything hold you back from starting to advocate for what you want. I know I was lucky enough to have the help of my mom and my dad, who started advocating for me and working with local organizations since I was 3 years old, but not everybody has that. So just reaching out to organizations, finding ways to work with them, even going to volunteer and making an impact. You just have to go for it.
Yeah, if you're sitting there wondering if your voice could be heard or if your voice could mean anything to anybody, I assure you it can, especially in this space. Me is a perfect example of that. Fast forward 10 years, where do you see Mia Fritsch-Anderson?
Well, my dream is to work at Rocky Mountain Construction, which is a roller coaster design company that focuses on innovative roller coaster techniques. So they initially designed my favorite roller coaster, Steel Vengeance, which is actually not only wood, but it's also steel. So it's a hybrid, which I find very interesting. So I can hope to work there. But also continuing my advocacy work, I actually recently incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit organization with Choose to Breathe, which was a very big step. So continuing my work with Choose to Breathe and continuing to reach more people, not only on a national level, but hopefully continuing to expand past that.
I think you're off to an amazing start so far. And shout out to Rocky Mountain Construction. Is that what you said they were called? Shout out to them. Be sure to hire Mia because she will be your best worker that you will ever have, guaranteed. To know that you can actually name specific roller coasters, it's pretty cool. I can't say I've ever met somebody that can. I love that.
I pretty much know whatever company has designed a roller coaster that I'm on at pretty much any amusement park because they kind of like tend to stick to one thing. So I always talk about it with my parents wherever I'm at.
So let's move on now, Mia, to closing thoughts. If there's one message you could leave our listeners, especially young people dealing with asthma, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing is knowing that having asthma doesn't make you weak and it doesn't make you a nerd like the media wants to portray. It's always important to not feel ashamed to take your inhaler, and it's more important to take your inhaler in public than risk being labeled. In the end, it's more important to be healthy and not risk having an asthma attack, and feel comfortable in yourself having asthma. And I hope that the work that I'm doing and the work that you're doing and people like us makes people understand that it's okay to have asthma and those misconceptions are actually.
And where can people follow your journey and support your work?
Yes, so I'm Mia Rose FH Choose to Breathe on both TikTok and Instagram. So you can follow me on both of those platforms to keep up with what I'm doing.
I will be sure to leave all that information as well in the show notes so our listeners and our viewers can have a link to click on to view you on social media.
Thank you.
So Mia, before we wrap up, I ask every guest the same question. Whether you have asthma or not, every breath we take is a gift, a reminder of our resilience, our drive to keep going, and our power to define our own limits. With a single breath, you have the potential to move mountains and change the world. So with that in mind, I have again one final question for you. If you had only one last breath, but with it the power to influence the world, what would your message be?
I would say you're not defined by your asthma. I think it's something that a lot of people don't understand or want to understand if they don't have asthma. It's really important that, yes, you are aware of your asthma and you take good care of yourself, but asthma doesn't have to define you and what you choose to do with your life. And I hope that people understand that.
That's well said. Mia, this has been an incredible conversation. Your energy, passion, and commitment to asthma awareness are truly inspiring. Thank you for sharing your story and for all the work you do to make sure young people with asthma know they are not alone and that they can achieve anything they set their minds to. For everyone listening, if you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe. Share it with somebody who needs to hear it and leave a review. And if you want to keep up with Mia and all her amazing work, we'll leave all the links below in the show notes. Until next time, keep pushing forward, keep breathing deep, and never let anything hold you back.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Wheeze. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share. Follow us on Instagram at Beyond the Wheeze or follow me at the Asthma Runner for more updates. Keep breathing strong and remember, your potential has no limits. Until next time.